Arjun Malhotra and Priya Sharma's wedding in Dubai was meant to be a fairy tale until the bride collapsed during her own reception, poisoned just hours after saying "I do." The wedding reception in Dubai was nothing short of a dream. The grand ballroom of the Al Noor Palace Hotel gleamed under the light of crystal chandeliers, each sparkle reflecting the joy and pride of two powerful families. The air was filled with the sound of laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses as guests celebrated the union of Arjun Malhotra and Priya Sharma. The couple looked radiant, Arjun, dressed in an ivory sherwani embroidered with gold, and Priya, in a deep red bridal lehenga that shimmered with every step she took. Cameras flashed from every corner, capturing what appeared to be a perfect love story. Priya's eyes sparkled with hope and relief. It had taken her months to convince her parents to agree to this marriage, and now she stood surrounded by people who admired her beauty and grace. The tables overflowed with delicacies from India and the Middle East: saffron biryani, lamb kebabs, rich desserts, and endless trays of champagne. The scent of roses and jasmine floated through the room, blending with the faint hum of conversation. Everything seemed perfect. But beneath the glitz and glamour, there was a quiet unease. Arjun's mother, Mrs. Malhotra, stood at the far end of the hall, watching the celebration unfold with a forced smile. Her gold bangles jingled softly as she adjusted her dupatta, but her eyes remained cold, calculating. Guests who greeted her noticed the stiffness in her expression but dismissed it as exhaustion. As the evening wore on, Priya noticed her mother-in-law's silence but brushed it aside. She believed it was simply the stress of the big day. What she didn't know was that behind that polite smile lay resentment, suspicion, and a dark intent that would soon turn the happiest night of her life into her last. Priya had always imagined her marriage as the beginning of a beautiful new chapter. She believed love could heal everything, even distance and differences in background. Her relationship with Arjun had blossomed quietly over months of video calls and secret trips to Dubai. He was gentle, ambitious, and always made her feel safe. When she discovered she was pregnant, she felt only joy. It was proof of their love, a symbol of the life they were building together. She had planned to tell Arjun after the wedding, when they were alone and free from family expectations. She even bought a small silver locket engraved with the words "Are beginning" to surprise him with the news. But fate had other plans. The night before the wedding, while final touches were being made to the reception, Priya's secret accidentally slipped out. During a casual conversation, her close friend Neha mentioned Priya's pregnancy to one of the makeup artists, assuming the family already knew. That makeup artist happened to be the cousin of Mrs. Malhotra's maid. By evening, the rumor had reached the Malhotra home like wildfire. When Mrs. Malhotra heard the news, she was horrified. In her mind, it was a scandal, not a blessing. She had imagined her son marrying a woman from a respectable family, not someone who arrived with secrets. She saw Priya's pregnancy as deliberate manipulation, a way to bind Arjun before he could change his mind. Her anger festered as she paced in her room, her pride burning hotter with every thought. Priya, unaware of the storm brewing, spent that night smiling at her reflection, excited about her future. She didn't realize that the secret she carried, which she thought was a symbol of love, had already sealed her tragic fate. Mrs. Malhotra's anger grew like a wildfire that refused to die down. All night, she replayed the words she had overheard, feeling her heart pound with humiliation. To her, the pregnancy was not a matter of love but deception. In her mind, Priya had disgraced the family name before even becoming part of it. The thought of guests whispering, of society mocking her son, filled her with unbearable shame. Her son, Arjun, was everything to her: her pride, her success, the one she had raised alone after losing her husband years ago. She had built her life around protecting him, guiding his every choice, and ensuring no one ever took advantage of his kindness. Now, she believed that Priya had done exactly that. In Mrs. Malhotra's eyes, the young woman was cunning and calculated, having trapped Arjun with a pregnancy to secure her future in wealth. Her anger turned to obsession. She sat before the mirror, staring at her reflection, whispering to herself that no one would destroy her family's name. The decision began forming in her mind, quiet, dangerous, and final. The next morning, she appeared calm, her face expressionless as the house buzzed with wedding preparations. No one could tell what she was thinking. She greeted the guests, smiled during the rituals, and even complimented Priya's beauty, hiding her fury behind perfect manners. But inside, her thoughts had darkened beyond repair. She convinced herself that she wasn't committing a sin, she was saving her son. As she watched Priya being surrounded by laughter and blessings, her heart hardened further. In that moment, she decided that the bride's story would not continue beyond the reception. Her revenge would be silent, hidden beneath the sound of music and celebration, the perfect crime disguised by love. The wedding reception began with laughter, music, and a steady flow of champagne. The ballroom glittered with gold and white, filled with friends, family, and business associates who came to bless the couple. Mrs. Malhotra moved through the crowd with graceful precision, her demeanor warm and composed. To anyone watching, she appeared to be the proud, elegant mother of the groom, smiling, thanking guests, and posing for pictures beside the happy couple. But beneath her calm exterior, her mind was consumed by a chilling focus. In her small clutch bag rested a crystal vial, no larger than her thumb, filled with a transparent liquid she had obtained through one of her housemaids. The maid's cousin worked in a veterinary clinic where dangerous chemicals were easily accessible. Mrs. Malhotra had told herself it was only a backup plan, but now it had become her mission. She knew the substance was odorless, tasteless, and lethal in small doses. She waited for the right moment. The guests were distracted by music and laughter, and Priya was constantly being pulled into group photos. When the time came for the toast, waiters began filling glasses with champagne. Mrs. Malhotra stood by the drinks table, pretending to adjust her jewelry, her hands steady despite the weight of what she was about to do. When the waiter stepped away for a moment, she quietly removed Priya's glass from the tray and poured in a few drops of the poison. Then, with careful precision, she placed it back, ensuring it looked untouched. As the toast began, she returned to her seat, heart pounding but face serene. Around her, guests raised their glasses to love and new beginnings. Priya smiled brightly, unaware that the drink in her hand would soon end everything she had dreamed of. The music swelled as the master of ceremonies called for a toast to the newlyweds. Laughter and applause echoed through the hall as waiters moved swiftly between tables, refilling glasses. Priya stood beside Arjun, her cheeks flushed with joy and excitement. She could hardly believe how perfect the day had been. Every detail, every smile, every blessing seemed like a dream come true. When she lifted her champagne glass, she didn't notice the faint shimmer of bubbles rising differently from the others. As everyone cheered, Priya took a sip, smiling at her husband. Within minutes, a strange warmth spread through her body. Her heartbeat quickened, and her throat began to tighten. At first, she thought it was just exhaustion, the weight of the ceremony and endless photos. But then, her vision began to blur, and her knees trembled. The music continued as she tried to steady herself, her hand clutching the edge of the table. Guests laughed nearby, unaware of her struggle. Suddenly, the glass slipped from her hand and shattered against the floor. The laughter stopped instantly. Priya's body convulsed, and she collapsed in front of the crowd. Arjun rushed to her side, shouting her name, his face pale with terror. Panic spread through the ballroom. Some guests screamed while others fumbled to call for help. Within minutes, hotel staff cleared a path as paramedics arrived and carried Priya away on a stretcher. Arjun followed in shock, his sherwani stained from kneeling beside her. Mrs. Malhotra stood frozen in the corner, pressing a trembling hand to her chest. She appeared distraught, even fainted briefly, but inside she felt a cold satisfaction mixed with fear. By the time they reached the hospital, it was too late. Priya was pronounced dead, the cause, an apparent cardiac arrest. The days following the tragedy were filled with confusion, grief, and whispered suspicions. The once joyous Malhotra home had turned into a place of mourning, its walls heavy with silence. Arjun sat for hours staring at Priya's wedding photo, unable to understand how his wife, so full of life, could collapse and die within hours of their vows. The doctors had called it cardiac arrest, but something about it felt wrong. Priya had been perfectly healthy, glowing with happiness. The thought that she might have been hiding an illness crossed his mind briefly, but deep down, he knew it didn't make sense. Mrs. Malhotra played the role of the grieving mother-in-law perfectly. She wept in front of guests, spoke softly about destiny, and refused to let anyone question what had happened. She insisted on a quick funeral, saying Priya should rest in peace without further delay. Her calmness comforted some relatives, but others found it strange how composed she seemed for someone who had just witnessed her daughter-in-law's sudden death. Then came the hospital report, a small detail that changed everything. Traces of unknown toxins were found in Priya's bloodstream. The attending doctor quietly informed the authorities, suspecting foul play. News of the investigation spread quickly, and soon, the Dubai police began questioning those who had been closest to Priya that night. Arjun's confusion turned into torment. He replayed every moment of the reception, remembering how his mother had been near the drinks table before the toast. Still, he pushed the thought away, unwilling to believe she could be involved. Meanwhile, Priya's parents in Mumbai demanded answers. They were told it was stress, but when a copy of the post-mortem report secretly reached them, their world shattered. Their daughter had been poisoned at her own wedding. As the investigation deepened, small inconsistencies began to form a disturbing picture. The hotel staff were called in for questioning, and one of the waiters mentioned something that caught the police's attention. He recalled seeing Mrs. Malhotra standing unusually close to the drinks table just before the toast. At first, he thought nothing of it. She had appeared calm and elegant, like any proud mother. But when asked to describe her actions, he remembered her holding one of the glasses for a moment before returning it to the tray. Surveillance footage soon confirmed his account. The camera showed Mrs. Malhotra reaching toward the drinks, adjusting something, and then stepping back just before the waiter served them. The evidence was subtle but undeniable. Investigators discreetly collected the remaining glasses from that night. The one identified as Priya's contained faint traces of a rare toxic substance not found in ordinary food or drink. Arjun was called to the police station to review the findings. When they showed him the footage, he sat frozen, unable to breathe. He wanted to deny it, to believe it was a mistake, but the image of his mother near Priya's glass was painfully clear. When the police confronted Mrs. Malhotra, her composure cracked. At first, she tried to deny everything, claiming she was only helping the waiter. But when pressed harder, she broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Between tears, she confessed that she had done it to protect her son from what she called a lifetime of disgrace. She claimed she had acted out of love, convinced that Priya's pregnancy was a trap. Her confession sent shockwaves through everyone present. Arjun's world shattered completely. The woman he had loved was gone, and the mother he trusted had destroyed her, all in the name of pride. The aftermath of the case left deep scars that would never heal. News of the shocking murder spread quickly across Dubai's Indian community and soon reached headlines back in India. The media called it the wedding of death, and every detail of the tragedy was dissected by reporters and social media commentators. What had started as a grand celebration of love became a chilling tale of betrayal, pride, and loss. Mrs. Malhotra was charged with first-degree murder and faced trial in Dubai's criminal court. The courtroom was packed with journalists, family members, and curious onlookers. She sat silently through most of the proceedings, her once confident posture replaced by a hollow emptiness. When the verdict was finally read, she showed no emotion. She was sentenced to life imprisonment. For many, justice had been served, but for Arjun, the punishment brought no peace. He could not forgive her, yet he couldn't erase the years of love and sacrifice she had given him as a mother. His life was left in ruins, torn between grief and guilt. Arjun sold his business, gave away most of his belongings, and left Dubai without telling anyone where he was going. Some said he moved to Europe, others believed he returned quietly to India under a new name. Priya's ashes were taken back to Mumbai by her parents, who buried her locket, the one engraved with "Our Beginning," beside her urn. It was the only part of her dream that survived. Years later, the ballroom where the tragedy occurred was renovated, but staff claimed strange things still happened there: flickering lights, faint laughter, and the smell of jasmine lingering in the air. For those who remembered that day, it was a haunting reminder that behind every perfect celebration, a dark truth can hide in plain sight.